It is going to be short and sweet, but actionable, something that you can actually do in your life to make a difference, to move the needle. And it's simple. And it doesn't take a lot of time, but it's very intentional, and it'll help be the catalyst to your growth. Welcome to the Permission Slip podcast, where I, empowerment coach, mindset expert, and holistic nutritionist Carmen share with you the tools, conversations, and resources you need to write your own permission slip, take massive action, and become obsessed with your own life. Let's get started. Welcome to the Permission Slip podcast. Welcome. Okay, it is well into January now, and I can still feel the energy. Oftentimes, I think that we go too hot, too heavy, too hard, too fast, too soon, which, anything too fast, too soon, too much, it kind of causes like mini trauma to us, right? Even if it's quote unquote positive things. But often we do that and then we lose steam and then we just wait for next year. Okay, maybe not wait for next year, but you get what I'm saying. We kind of give up. But this year has been a steady, easeful, yet fierceful focus on where I want to go. And I hope you can feel that too. The energy, I can really feel it in the collective. And I was sitting down and reviewing the intuitive planning and strategy session that I did with myself that I taught back in December to all of you. If you watched that masterclass, Manifesting Your Dreams and Goals with Ease, which if you didn't watch it, I have that free for you and all the tools and resources and worksheets that you need to go back and do that process for yourself, because you don't have to wait for the end of the year or the new year to do it. You can do it anytime. That link is in the show notes, or you can just DM me and I will just DM me the word 2023 and I will shoot you the link over. Anyway, I was sitting back and I was looking at that, and part of it was reflecting on what really worked, what didn't work, what I was excited about, what lessons I learned, and all of that. And 4 really, really specific themes came through to me that I knew that if I focused on these themes as a priority, they would continue to transform me and my life and my business and my health and my relationships and more. So that's what we're doing on the podcast over the next 4 weeks. It is going to be short and sweet, but actionable, something that you can actually do in your life to make a difference, to move the needle. And it's simple. And it doesn't take a lot of time, but it's very intentional. And it'll help be the catalyst to your growth. Welcome back to the podcast. We're on to number 3. What did you think so far about 1 and 2? So a reminder that we're focusing on these 4 things this year to transform your life. So number 3, we're just going to jump right into it, is this: listen louder. Oftentimes we hear things, but we don't actually listen. Listen means that we are using our senses, we're fully present, we're experiencing the moment. Hearing could be just mindlessly hearing noise, kind of like the Charlie Brown teacher, womp, 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 womp. And what kind of life is that, going through life and all you hear or listen to is womp, 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 womp? Don't you want to be an active participant in your life? I mean, our ego self will, of course, try to drown us out, because our ego self is always going to be dependent on the people or things in our life to make us feel safe. And it's always our inclination from our ego self to want to control things that really block us from listening to others, or block us from listening to those divine messages that is our own inner knowing and our own intuition coming in. So here's what I want you to think about as it relates to other people, and then we'll talk about listening louder as it relates to yourself. The first thing is ask questions. Be in the energy of curiosity when you're around others, especially if you're around people that maybe you go into it and you have some sort of expectation of what's going to happen, some sort of sense of dread. Often this is relationships that we've had for some time, and we go into it thinking we already know what's going to happen. And when we think we already know what's going to happen, that completely blocks us from any miracles, any blessings, any joy. It just robs joy from the moment. It also robs the authentic interaction with the other person. It steals a little bit of the other person's energy, so they're not going to be able to fully show up and shine. And you're definitely not fully showing up and shining. And so if you do have relationships like that maybe you're going into with a little sense of resentment or dread or anticipating things that are going to happen, what I want you to do is I want you to commit to learning something new about this person. And when you make a commitment to learn something new about this person, it drops all preconceived notions. Because again, A Course in Miracles always tells us that nothing has meaning until you place meaning upon it. So it removes all meaning and all labels, and you can see and listen with fresh eyes and fresh ears to be able to discover something new. So that's with our existing relationships, but what about new relationships? People want to be seen and they want to be heard. I know this was one thing that I would always think about, and I would always coach in with my team when I was in corporate finance, especially when we were working with our clients, is people want to be seen and heard, so ask them questions. We're not just having a transaction with this person, we're building a relationship. So don't tell them what they need, listen to them, and then it will be uncovered. And I always talked about sales through service, not just sales. It's listening and uncovering, so that you can say something as easy as, based on what you told me, what I recommend, what we're going to do is X, Y, and Z, so that you can X, Y, and Z. So listen and ask questions, and don't be sitting there waiting and formulating your answer. It's getting out of your head and being fully present, because the most interested person is the most interesting. So if you're looking to meet new collaborations, meet new friends, meet new people, build new relationships, remember to speak less and to listen more. Okay, so that's listening louder as it relates to other people, as it relates to building new relationships, and even up-leveling and finding more joy and happiness in your existing relationships. Listening is so important. I always say that, like Joel, my partner of 20 years this year, he is my best teacher. And I know that now only because I started listening louder. I started taking away any preconceived notions or expectations and just hearing him. And even if maybe I wanted to say something, sometimes I would listen even louder and longer without speaking, without filling space, because silence sometimes we think is uncomfortable and we have to fill it. And so if you get into that moment where there's uncomfortable silence, but you don't necessarily genuinely have something to say, sit in the discomfort, because I bet in that moment, you'll experience a miracle or a blessing to be able to learn something new about the person that you're with. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and end the part on other people, and let's talk about the relationship with yourself. Now, this is something over the past year and something into this year that I am continuing working on. And that is really listening to my own inner knowing, listening to source inside of me, my intuition, listening to those divine supernatural gifts that are inside of me. But somehow, most of the time, we're in our ego-based self, which is basically just our conditioned self that we operate in a certain way that we've built up because of societal standards, preconditioned norms that we have built into our belief system in our subconscious. And oftentimes we're unconsciously negotiating with the world around us versus going inward and asking, how would my soul see this? What would my soul want me to know? Because our society is of instant gratification. If it's not fast, fun, or easy, then it's not for us. But that's just not true. The more that we can listen louder and listen longer for our own inner knowing, our own intuition, the more we're going to be able to hear. Often people tell me that they don't really know the difference. They can't tell if it's just a thought, if it's their ego self, if it's their own intuition. And here's a couple hints on that. So if you're sitting there and you're actually taking me up on these two questions, how would my soul see this? If you are presented with something, instead of trying to overthink it or over logic it, and you just take a moment, what I want you to do first is actually just like look at the palms of your hands. Just make notice of them. Look at the lines. Close your eyes, take a few deep breaths, and create energy and friction. I'm just rubbing my palms together quickly, taking a few deep breaths in and out. And then what I want you to do is stop and place your hands on your body, palms face down, wherever you feel called. I landed more towards my roots, so on my thighs, but wherever feels good to you. And I want you to open your eyes, and I want you to look around. And I want you to look up, and I just want you to see what you can notice. Make a mental note of what you can notice while just taking longer than normal breaths, trying to make the out breath a little bit longer than the in breath. And then ask yourself, how would my soul see this? What would my soul want me to know? So what we just did in that moment is we use a somatic technique. So basically just getting into our body, getting into our breath and out of our head in order to then get aligned to be able to tap in more to our inner knowing, to our own intuition. Because the path will get louder and widen when you let go and listen. But if you're being presented with something and you're trying to over logic it, you have to get into that aligned state in order for your intuition to come in. Because our intuition, our soul, our inner knowing gives us the quickest route to our desires. And intuition is really just the natural ability and power to know something without proof. Just like we always talk about. Like trusting and knowing that we are on the right path, even if we can't see the end result, because it's there. So other ways to know if this is your ego self or if this is your intuition. So after you've tapped in, what you hear, if it's really, really vague, that's probably your ego self. If it's very specific, that's most likely your highest self, your intuition, your inner knowing, God giving you a little download. In addition to that, what I've found anyways, and this could be a little bit different for you, everybody's a little bit different, so you have to start practicing. This is a practice. It's not going to come just like overnight to be able to tap into your intuition. But the more you meditate and the more you resonate with your soul and your inner knowing, the more you tune your antenna to receive. And nature is one of our biggest openers. So the other tip that I've found for me personally is that my intuition and inner knowing, it tells me short things, quick hits that are easily ignored or pushed aside when you're not fully present and aligned. But my ego self it's going to be long and it's going to be overanalyzed and it's going to be too much. That's one way that I know is like, is this my intuition? Or am I just thinking another thought based off my old belief system? Because beliefs are basically just a thought that you keep thinking. And beliefs are our ultimate catalyst for change. Because when a belief or an old thought comes up out of your subconscious, you can ask yourself, do I want to hold this, challenge it, or change it? And then you can take steps towards that. And you can take steps towards reprogramming your thoughts so that you have them less and less. So your comeback rate is faster than faster. So you're in a state of joy and alignment and aligned with your inner knowing and your intuition more often. So be easy on yourself. This is a practice, and most of us just aren't quite there yet. So another thing that you could do to listen louder to yourself, to your own inner knowing, is, well, one, stop consuming. Be a creator, not a consumer. And we are in a consumer-driven, materialistic society. So it's challenging. So you have to make an intentional, conscious effort to do that each and every day. The second thing I want you to do is really understand that intuition is our most natural self. And the biggest thing that blocks us is our attachment to our physical things or our ego self. And so what I want you to do is I want you to make a list of things for you where your soul feels alive, where you love it, where you feel like most connected and alive. So for me, the things where I feel most connected and alive are walks outside. Living in Miami Beach and South Beach, I go for 2 walks a day. If you follow me on Instagram, if not, do it, because you'll see I have my God walks that I go on in the morning and in the afternoon. And it's just such a great way to set my intention for the day, and then a transition ritual from ending my workday to coming back home to myself, to being available for when Joel gets home so we can have intentional time spent. Other things that really make my soul feel alive is teaching and leading and speaking. Oftentimes we call these areas like our zone of genius. And the more often that you can spend time in your zone of genius, which I would like to shoot for a goal of like 80%, 75, 80% or more, if that time could be spent in your zone of genius, if I could spend most of my time doing this podcast, speaking on stages, teaching in Flow Academy, which, by the way, if you like some of the little principles that I'm teaching in this is the type of thing that we teach in Flow Academy, which is our holistic life coaching academy for leaders, coaches, and entrepreneurs to really get to the next level. So if you feel stuck in your leadership, in your business, if you're looking to change your coaching, if you're looking to become a life coach, then this is for you, because you can actually get certified too. So side note, there's a link in the show notes all about that. So going back to making a list and operating in your zone of genius. So make a list of the things that fuel your soul. Even when it comes to like work in the service that you do, seeing if you can make a list of those things that fill your soul, where you feel most aligned, where you feel most connected, and see if you can operate in that 75 to 80% of the time. It may mean asking for help, delegating. It may mean letting things go. You know, I was really journaling the other day, this whole idea of like dying to yourself, which just basically means like renewing yourself, allowing God to renew your mind, your body, your spirit, and then letting go of the old. And sometimes we actually have to let dreams die so we can let new ones come, so we can start tackling them. Because while I believe that we are all like, all are infinite, like we all have infinite possibilities and abundance, just not all at the same time. And oftentimes we get this overwhelming amount of hits of things that we want to go for, but just know that sometimes we have to let those dreams die temporarily, put them on hold, let them rest, so that we can be really great at the one that God is asking us to step into. Because when we have too much going on, we'll never be able to hear our intuition. We'll never be able to hear our inner knowing. So what we want to do to be able to hear it, and why I'm asking you to make these lists, is we want to raise our vibration to increase your ability to hear and sense your intuition clearly. And that's really what it's all about. And then once you raise your vibration and get into alignment, then you can ask those questions. The other thing I want to make sure that you do is celebrate, track, and write down your intuitive wins. Like, have a little notebook, write it in your journal, remember it, because this is going to build confidence of your own inner knowing. It's also going to build confidence on outside. It's going to build self-love and self-trust. Because we have all heard, you have the answer, it's inside of you, but we're all like, what the fuck does that mean, right? This is what we're talking about, but this is the actual practical application of how to do it. So number 3 of the things that you need to focus on this year to transform your life is simply this: listen louder. As that relates to up-leveling and bettering your relationships, and as that relates to being able to listen and to trust your own inner knowing and your intuition. So if this hit home for you, make sure to tag me on Instagram, on your Instagram stories. If it's been a minute or if you never have, I would be so grateful if you left a rating and review on iTunes, because that's how this podcast gets out to more people and touches more lives, or simply just share it and text a friend who could use this. So I'll be back next week with wrapping up on our number 4 of the 4 things that you need in your life to transform in 2023. Thanks for listening. And until next time, stay happy, stay healthy, and have some fucking fun.